All right, 888-957-9570. It's Willard and Dibs. Glad you're with us. Yeah, good Doc's going to hop on here in a half hour. But Jock Peterson and Tyro Estrada ready to go for Gigante tonight. Let's go to Jonathan in the city. Hey, Jonathan, what are you doing?
Just cooking up some extra large meatballs.
Wow.
I just want to say, man, you got a question mark, and Dan earlier is Brock Jimmy 2.0.
Jimmy 2.0. What do you think, Jonathan?
No. Hell no, guys. First of all,
what's going on with Jonathan's phone? Yeah, no. That's not good enough. Jonathan is one of our faithful callers.
Yeah.
I think he's called enough times where Odyssey should buy him a new phone.
He could be out of minutes.
Yeah.
Remember the old school minutes plans?
I want to hear what he had to say, though. The whole Jimmy 2.0 conversation. I don't know. You started out by saying yes, and then, I don't know. Like, I think there are certain ways of looking at it where you feel one way, certain that you feel the other way.
I think it's a yes, but I also think that in terms of who Jimmy Garoppolo was, people use him being Jimmy 2.0 as a disparaging comparison, I think. And that's where I think that that's unfair. He could be Jimmy 2.0, but if you look at Jimmy Garoppolo and what he was 38-17 as a starter for this team. That's a pretty good winning percentage.
Really good, yeah.
In terms of games won. But you look at what he did, yards per game, 238.6 yards per game. That, to me, is the kind of quarterback that Brock Purdy is going to be. He's not necessarily dink and dunk, and he's not a complete game manager, but he's the kind of quarterback that you're not going to lean on to go out there and win a game. You don't need Brock Purdy to make plays, big plays, in order to win a game.
Well, I always wonder when we say this, like you and I have had what sometimes turns into a semantics conversation about Brock Purdy being the 6th best player on the 49ers or the 9th best player on the 49ers, and they're the one team that can do that at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
And so if we use the word best, I can sort of agree with you. But when we use the word important, that's where I sort of disagree. Like, in other words, Trent Williams is way better than Brock Purdy. Trent Williams is better at his job than Brock Purdy would be at this point at his job, but I would still argue that Brock Purdy's more important. If you got to go play a big division game that's going to really launch you into the standings, into first place, or you're going to fall 2 games back. And I said, you got to play without either Trent Williams or Brock Purdy. Who do you want to play without? Trent, you're sitting.
I'd rather play without Brock Purdy.
Yeah, no, I like your quarterback. It's just by definition, the position is so much more important than all of the other positions.
But I think in terms of value over replacement player, VORP, which is a baseball stat, the drop-off from Trent Williams to, I don't know, Mark, who's the backup left tackle?
I don't know.
Thank you. But we know who the backup quarterback is, and he's not that much of a drop-off from Brock Purdy.
Do we know that? I don't know that we know that.
Well, it's either Sam Darnold or Trey Lance.
And I know nothing, quite frankly, about either one of them in a 49er uniform.
I would feel better about Trey Lance or Sam Darnold replacing Brock Purdy as opposed to, Nick Zakelj?
I don't know, bro. Like, I mean, for one game.
I don't know either.
Yeah, Chief. Like, for one game.
Ow.
You know what I mean? Trent Williams missed a bunch of games this year. He missed a stretch of games. Like, the 49ers have actually had pretty good luck with, oh, no, we've lost an offensive lineman. Who's this jabroni that we're throwing in there? What's his name? Dan Brunskill? Oh, actually, he played great. Like, that can happen.
Left tackle, though.
But I get it. Quarterback.
They went through 5 of them last year.
Which do you think would affect the line more?
The point spread?
Right? Niners are going to win a weekend. They're 4-point favorite. Then the news comes out. Trent Williams is out.
Oh, it's quarterback.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean anything. That's just the point spread. That's the bettor's perception.
It means something. I know it's not automatic A to B, but it definitely means something.
But if you looked at all 32 teams, if you took away their quarterback, the point spread's going to move 3 to 4 points no matter what. For Mahomes, it might be 6, or Josh Allen, it might be 6.
Yeah,
for the Niners, it would be less than many other teams.
Maybe, but look, you're still handing all of that over to a complete unknown, and it's the person who's going to have the ball in their hands on every play. Like that, man, I can't think of what matters more. We all agree it's the most important position in sports. 888-957-9570. How about Dave in Pleasanton? Hey, Dave. Thanks for calling. What are you doing?
Hey, fellas, I just got home, but I had to chime in. The last caller, even though he didn't say too much on the Jimmy 2.0,
Yeah.
He's right. The answer is hell no, and here's why. Brock, in his first year, can throw the ball outside the numbers. He can actually throw the ball away instead of just, crawling to the ground instead of getting hit, right? His touchdown to interception ratio is way different than Jimmy Garoppolo's, and he's probably not going to throw a safety and an interception in the same play. That's all I
got. Dave, I totally hear you. Now, I do think on one level, that Broncos game, that's a tough one for Jimmy, man. Like, he looked awful. It was, quite frankly, it was the worst game that I can ever remember him playing in a 49er uniform. And it's up to each and every one of you if you want to make that the poster game for him, or if you want to give him at least a partial pass because he had no camp and that was his first start getting thrown back in there off of Trey Lance's injury. Jimmy played really well last year when you look at the whole year. He played really well. But I'll take the overall point because you know what? He played well, but he didn't play as well as Brock. He didn't play as well as Brock, and Brock also got thrown in there. Brock also didn't have tons of, if any, first-team camp reps. And, he also hadn't played NFL football before. And he went in and he raised every single portion of the Niners' offense. So
I don't give Jimmy a pass for that because he came in the previous game against Seattle and played great. And so then now you get a whole week of prep, and now you come out and you talk about how you were rusty.
Right, except for
I'm not buying it.
Except for he did say in that Seattle game that they were just kind of winging it, which he loved.
Sure.
Do you remember the Denver game was the lip sync gate when everyone had decided that Jimmy came off the field and said, these plays blimp and stink, or this play calling stinks, or whatever, and who knows what he actually said. But it was clear after the Seattle game that he loved the idea of going out there and slinging it and winging it a little bit more, for sure.
Against Seattle, sure. And then you come out against Denver and you score 10 points and you lose in a very, very ugly loss. And he lost actually 3 of his first 5 starts. So you could say that he played better. He did, but they didn't play better.
Remind me of where it went from there. After Denver, where'd they go?
You beat the Rams 24-9.
Okay.
In a very ugly game at home. You whoop up on Carolina 37-15.
Jimmy played really well in that one. I remember that one.
Atlanta, you all stunk.
Oh, yeah.
In the second game of a road trip. He had 2 interceptions, and he threw for 296. Most of that was in garbage time.
They were terrible.
When they were down. And then you got rolled by Kansas City. 44-23. He threw for 303. He had a pick in that game. He got sacked 5 times.
And then
by the Chiefs.
Was the very next week Miami?
Beat the Rams, beat the Chargers, beat Arizona, beat New Orleans in a shutout, then Miami.
But it was after Kansas City that C-Mac starting.
Yeah.
That's what happened there. Christian McCaffrey showed up.
Yes, and he did not throw another pick after that. He had 7 touchdowns, no picks.
They never lost another game until they got to Philly.
Right.
Yeah.
True. And he got knocked out of the Miami game after 4 throws. Jimmy G.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
Jimmy got hurt.
That's weird. If we were going to make that case about who's more important to the 49er offense than Brock Purdy, I would go there rather than Trent Williams. I would go to McCaffrey.
Well, I think they're both in the list for me.
Yeah.
And I would put Debo on the list. I would put Trent Williams, and I would even go so far as to maybe put Kyle Juszczyk on that list.
More important than the quarterback?
These stats meet it out.
Kyle Juszczyk?
Jimmy Garoppolo was great. He was rolling, and he got hurt. Brock Purdy came in. And they were rolling, and Brock got hurt. And if you would have had another quarterback to throw in there against Philadelphia, maybe you still win that game.
Yeah, I don't know. The fullback, I just think
critical in this offense.
I think it's not that he's not critical, but I mean they've played without him before. Even Debo, and again, I don't know what the drop off from Brock to Trey is. You said it a little bit ago, it's not that big. I don't know what it is. It might be nothing. It might go the other direction.
Right.
Maybe Trey's better than him. I have no idea where this is going to go, but I haven't seen enough to feel comfortable about anyone coming in behind the quarterback and the 49ers, quote unquote, not missing a beat. They can play without one of their receivers. They can play without their fullback.
Yeah.
They
I just look at what they did last year when they lost their quarterback. You lose your starter, Trey Lance, and the backup comes in, and you do pretty well. And then you lose your backup, and the third stringer comes in, and you do pretty well.
Really well.
So I didn't think that they lost a beat at all from Trey to Jimmy, from Jimmy to Brock. Now, from Brock to Josh, maybe you did because Josh hadn't played.
Well,
now you're down to QB4.
But so does Brock get credit for that, or
Shanahan gets credit for that?
Interesting.
I think.
Interesting.
And that's why I've always said that the quarterback in this offense is not necessarily the most important player.
Do you know what's interesting? When you say that, it's like we're in the midst of this time where, and I think rightfully so, people have a lot of questions about Kyle Shanahan and the quarterback. In other words, why did you move heaven and earth to go draft a guy, and then what we're supposed to just not notice? We're supposed to not notice that you gave 3 years of draft capital into a guy who's never going to play. That's really odd. But in the same breath, a lot of people are going to go, man, Kyle Shanahan's off. This is the one team who's able to do it without a star at quarterback. And I can't think of a bigger compliment that you could give a coach. I've never, who's said that in the history of the league? This coach is so good, they don't even need a good quarterback.
Right.
And they can win. That's the greatest compliment that you could ever give a coach. I've never heard anyone say that about Walsh, Parcells, Lombardi. I mean, Andy Reid, anyone. Who has ever said this coach is so insane with his play calling and has such a roster around him, they don't even need a great quarterback? And it feels like it's coming from the same people who have a lot of Kyle questions. If you've got a coach who doesn't need a great quarterback, I would like to sign him to a lifetime contract tomorrow.
Right?
That's unbelievable.
My questions about Kyle Shanahan are not about his play calling. It's about his game management. At times, I think the game management stuff is what gets away from him. And, sometimes he maybe gets to be too smart for his own good. But the way he runs his offense with the formations, the pre-snap motions, the play call, the sophistication, you've seen it. You don't need an elite quarterback to be successful. Look at the quarterbacks they've had. They've made it to the Super Bowl or damn near the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy.
Right.
These guys they're not great. They've never been in a top 10 list on any assessment.
They're not bad either, though.
They're fine.
That's not the word for
They're
them.
Eli Manning.
Well, he can go to the Hall of Fame.
But why is he going to the Hall of Fame?
Because
he won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, because he won 2 Super Bowls.
Right. Other than those 2 Super Bowls, Eli Manning, he's all right.